Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle a word you've probably heard a ton, especially if you're in tech, Kubernetes. But what is it really? And what in the world does this digital conductor have to do with the apps you use every single day? Let's dive in.
So, let's start with a question. Think about your favorite app, maybe a social network, a game, or a streaming service. Have you ever wondered how they manage to work flawlessly, even when literally millions of people are using them all at the exact same time?
Well, here's the secret. It's not one giant single piece of software. That old way of building things, it just doesn't cut it anymore. It can't scale, and it's not resilient enough for the modern internet.
Instead, these huge applications are actually made up of hundreds, sometimes thousands of tiny, independent services. We call them microservices. One little service might handle your login, another one handles your feed, a third one processes payments. They all have to work together perfectly in sync, kind of like a digital orchestra.
Okay, so this microservice approach sounds great, right? It's flexible, it's powerful, but it also creates a brand new and frankly massive problem. Now, instead of managing one big program, you're trying to wrangle this huge chaotic mess of tiny moving parts.
Trying to manage all of this by hand, it's basically impossible. These services are always changing. They need to be placed on the right servers. They need the right configuration, and you have to watch them constantly. And the big one, what happens when something breaks? You have to be able to handle failures gracefully so the whole app doesn't just collapse.
Which brings us right back to our orchestra. With all this potential for chaos, you absolutely need a conductor. You need something or someone to bring order to the madness and make sure every single piece is playing its part correctly.
And that conductor, that answer to all this complexity, is an open source system that was originally born inside Google. And its name is Kubernetes.
Okay, so that's the official definition, but what does container orchestration even mean? Well, first, think of a container as a neat little box that has everything a piece of code needs to run. The code, the settings, all of it. Kubernetes' job is to be the orchestrator. It's the system that automates the management of thousands of these little boxes, telling them where to go, what to do, and making sure the whole symphony plays beautifully. And you know what? This orchestra analogy is actually a perfect fit for how Kubernetes is structured. The conductor, that's what we call the master node. It's the brain, making all the big decisions. The different sections of the orchestra, the strings, the brass, those are the worker nodes. They're the actual computers doing the work. And each individual musician, that's a container, playing its specific little piece of code.
So, how does this whole digital orchestra actually function? Let's peel back a layer and take a quick look at the basic architecture. It's simpler than you might think.
It really just boils down to two main parts. You've got the master node, that's our conductor on the podium. It manages everything, it sees the big picture, and it decides what goes where. And then you have the worker nodes. These are the workhorses, the machines that are actually running all your code. Simple, right? A director and a team.
All right, now we're going to zoom way in. Let's look at the absolute most fundamental, the smallest building block in this whole system. It's called a pod. Now, here's a really key detail. Kubernetes doesn't actually run containers all by themselves. It wraps them up, one or sometimes more, inside this little bubble called a pod. The pod is the smallest thing you can create or manage. So in our orchestra, a pod is like a single musician, holding their instrument, the container.
And maybe the most important thing to get about pods is this. They're designed to be temporary, disposable. The technical term is ephemeral. They can be created and destroyed in a flash. Now that might sound like a weakness, but it's actually the secret to Kubernetes' biggest superpower, its ability to adapt and heal itself.
And this is where it all comes together. Why do we go through all this trouble with masters and nodes and pods? It's for one reason, and one reason only: the incredible magic of automation. This is what makes Kubernetes a total game changer.
Okay, so let's play out a super common real-world scenario. What happens if one of our musicians, a single pod running a critical piece of our app, just crashes? A bug, a glitch, whatever. It goes silent. Without a human lifting a finger, the conductor, the Kubernetes master node, instantly notices that a musician has stopped playing. And boom, it immediately creates a brand new, perfectly healthy replacement to take its place. This is called self-healing. It's the reason why modern apps can stay online 24/7.
All right, but what about a different kind of problem? Let's say your app suddenly goes viral. A post takes off, and now millions of users are flooding in all at once.
Your little band of musicians just can't keep up.
Well, our conductor, Kubernetes, sees this happening. It sees the massive load and automatically starts creating more copies or replicas of the pods that are getting slammed. It just adds more musicians to the orchestra on the fly. And just as important, when the traffic dies down, it'll send them home to save money and resources.
And it's not just about making more copies. That's only half the battle. It also intelligently and automatically spreads all that incoming traffic evenly across all the new copies. We call that load balancing. It makes sure no single musician gets overwhelmed and the experience stays smooth for everybody.
You know, all these amazing features, self-healing, auto-scaling, load balancing, they're all in service of a much bigger mission. Kubernetes is governed by a nonprofit called the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, or CNCF, and their goal is right there on the screen, to make this kind of powerful, super reliable software something that's available to everyone.
So, if you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this. Kubernetes brings order to the incredible chaos of modern applications. It is the automation and the intelligence that lets us run these complex, sprawling systems reliably at a scale we could have only dreamed of just a few years ago.
It's really become the foundational layer for the future of software. By taking care of all the hard, messy parts of orchestration, it frees up developers to actually focus on building new, amazing things. Which leaves us with one final really exciting question. Now that we can conduct code like a symphony, what incredible things are we going to build next?